European Union has made climate change policy one of its top priorities. Its climate and energy package is currently passing through the European Parliament. The package is likely to change the way people in Europe live their lives, from the cars they drive to the electrical appliances they use. But such is the political sensitivity of climate change as a subject that few politicians or businesses dare challenge the conventional wisdom. One who does, however, is Roger Helmer, a Conservative MEP who represents the East Midlands of England. Roger is sceptical about global warming and even more sceptical about the EU's measures to address it. As a keen motorist, he opposes EU emissions limits designed to encourage us to drive smaller cars. And while it's true that we don't all need to drive around in a Jaguar, many people in Roger's mainly rural constituency depend on large vehicles.
All these measures designed to prevent car usage are frankly not very helpful. But then in addition to that, we have all these other measures. The EU is mandating very high percentages of renewable energy. They're doing it in a way which is distorting the market, putting far too much focus on wind, perhaps distracting us from other renewables that we should be involved in, and above all is risking the possibility that we fail to build the mainstream baseload power generation we need to power our growing economies.
In fact, wind power has really put the wind up Roger. He's campaigning against a major wind farm development at Swinford, a village in his constituency. Local residents say that if the plans go ahead, the peace and tranquility of this rural community will be shattered forever. They see the wind farm proposal as a consequence of rigid top-down policies coming from Brussels. Keith Kilbane has invested hundreds of hours of his own time into research to prove the case against wind farms, not only here, but elsewhere too.
And then we'd have rotating blades, not stationary, rotating, which makes me feel quite angry, and it makes me feel initially powerless, but then we think, no, we won't be powerless, we'll see what we can do about it. We are, as a country, we are being told that we have to take perfectly adequate power stations offline simply because the EU says so, and we're having forced onto us equipment and machines that do not do what they're supposed to do, but actually are detrimental to our way of life. They'll cost us money, they'll give us noise, they'll upset an awful lot of people unnecessarily.
Clearly then, the EU has not won the public relations battle in Swinford. But many experts think that the EU still needs to keep making a positive case for why such urgent and firm action is necessary. Edward Page is from the nearby University of Warwick.
I think it's fair to say that many people, particularly in Britain, find some of these actions to be quite paternalistic. The EU over the last 40 years has been seen as being a bit of a whipping boy for any anti-governmental, anti-paternalistic sentiment. But it's important to remember that the costs and benefits aren't only those distributed amongst those who live now in different countries, inside and outside the EU, but also we're talking about costs and benefits for future generations.
However, the global financial crisis could force the EU to think again about the speed and scale of climate change policy. MEPs were expected to vote on the climate and energy package before the next EU summit in mid-December. That vote could have sent a powerful signal to the member states. But MEPs can't agree a common position, partly because of the urgency of the financial crisis. So the vote has been postponed to after the summit.
Pursuing the adoption of the various measures that are part of the climate and energy package is not part of the problem of the current financial crisis, it's part of the solution. And of course, the climate crisis cannot afford delays. This is also true from the economic point of view. If we delay action, and this has already been widely proven, if we delay action, we risk having to pay a lot more to repair the situation.
Many parliamentarians think that the financial crisis offers an opportunity to embed the climate change agenda within the new global financial framework.
When we talk about various packages, stimulus packages, I think one of the bigger area of stimulus could be in the whole renewable technology, in rolling out of new technology right across the globe. So we have thriving lower carbon economies by the time we get through this financial crisis.
But if MEPs are struggling to find a common position, so too are the member states. This was apparent at the European Council in September. Italy's Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi was among those who raised concerns about pushing ahead so fast with the EU's climate change plans at a time of deep recession. Cristiana Muscardini's party, Alleanza Nazionale, is part of Italy's ruling bloc.
I think that Berlusconi is right in saying very clearly that the achievement of a better situation regarding the climate and the environment is a common objective, but that achieving this goal requires gradual changes to address the climate and not penalizing the economy, especially at a time of great crisis that is affecting not only Italy and Europe, but the whole world.
But for Green MEPs, any breach in the member states' common commitment to address climate change risks derailing the whole strategy.
The failure of the European Union is also the failure of many national politicians. National politicians pay too much attention to lobbyists from certain industries instead of defending the interests of the people and future generations. It's that type of inconsistency that undermines the credibility of politics at the national level and the European level.
But there's another serious credibility issue at EU level. Every month, MEPs, along with thousands of staff, officials, lobbyists and media, have to move for 1 week to hold sessions in the French city of Strasbourg. This system is increasingly seen as a symbol of the European Union's double standards on climate change, and not just by Eurosceptics.
The cost of that journey is about 200 million euros a year, but the carbon emissions are about 90,000 tons. It's wholly unnecessary. There isn't any practical reason. It disrupts the work of the Parliament. It costs a huge amount of money, and it emits very large amounts of CO2. If we were serious about CO2 emissions, the first thing we should do is actually stop the European Parliament from coming to Strasbourg.
Not for the first time, a crisis has disrupted the EU's long-term plans. Much effort is being made to broker an agreement between the Council and the Parliament. The political consequences of failure could be profoundly and permanently damaging to the Union's future ambitions.